get ready to throw down.
What's up, everybody? Live lunch break, part 700. Who knows how long we've been doing these at this point? Al's got his face covering, his mask. He's playing.
Yeah. This is my my go-to, but it was a homemade mask. My staff made them, and so I'm one thread away from losing my protection.
You are flirting with danger, sir.
Man, it's danger close. Danger close.
Awesome. We have Nanette, who's got a new paddleboard in the background. She's going to go paddleboarding, I think, as soon as we're done here. So, and Clint might be joining us. He might not be.
Clint's MIA.
He's super important, right? He's closing deals, hopefully. I mean, that would be a good reason to miss the show.
Yeah, let's hope it's a money endeavor and not one of his other excursions.
And Melissa is right off camera here, so if you guys are watching on Facebook and you want to leave a comment, ask a question, please do. And let's kind of like hop in, right? It's Friday. What's been going on this week for you guys, if anything exciting?
So I'm sorry.
No,
you know me, I have to jump in. I think that things are definitely picking up. I'm definitely seeing one of my surgeons, well, actually two of them are really busy, just catching up. So that's wonderful.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, Dr. Daniel, what were you going to say?
Yeah, we're just doing our briefing on antibody testing here at the clinic. So we're going to be testing for the COVID antibodies for patients and anybody that's interested in that. So we've sent out, people have been actually calling us. So got the test kits in yesterday. I think that, things are opening up. What I am seeing is not everybody's surviving the shutdown though. Number of colleagues that have called saying that they're no longer going to be in practice. So we've come out the other side, I think, in a stronger position. I know this, this is just the truth. When these things hit, the weaker hands sometimes have to fold, and fold in the sense of, they may not be in the position they were in. They may have to go find another job. They may have to. So those of you that are out there, a couple of things. If your company's not one that's going to step back up to the plate, you need to start looking now to make a move. And if yours is stepping up, now's the time. If you're in a managerial position or if you're in a growth position, is to move up that ladder, because they're going to be bringing in some of these newer guns underneath you. So think about this in a way that gives you a path in a direction. Because if you're standing still right now, you're losing.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Al. If you were not you with all your connections and experience in healthcare, and you were starting now, like you worked for someone, you got laid off, sales capacity, you're going to do something in sales again. Like, what are there certain industries that you would be looking for or into over others on the other side of this if you were starting completely over?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it kind of, I would think that medical sales, is going to be a strong arena. I just had a visit with my daughter, who's a senior, soon to be a senior, and she's in a kind of a communications marketing kind of arena. And she was looking for internships in like event planning and all these big venues. She's like, she was in discussions about what she was going to do this summer, and all of that's gone, right? And with no real indication of when they'll be back, right? So if you're good at sales, you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
So
find somebody who's selling something and go sign up. It may not be the dream of position, but it's a position, and then go sell.
What are things that this COVID has identified? What are things that people cannot live without? Well, the silly thing, toilet paper, but
okay, hold on. Let me throw out some names. Cisco Food Sales, McKesson, okay, Henry Schein. These are distributors that distribute into the medical arena, and they are huge. If you've got a track record, I would be looking into food, transportation. I'd stay away from airlines. I'd stay away from venue events. Those are the hardest hit industries. I think you go back to the basics, and IT sales, I think, are going to be big. I think the internet's going to be wrought with a lot of abuse. And we know some people from our past experiences that are in that internet security arena. Personally, it probably wouldn't be a fit for me because I'm a stump when it comes to that. I mean, John has to invite me in every time to do these meetings because I can barely find my ass on a computer. But, I think low tech is in. I'd get a lawnmower and start mowing grass, right? I mean, different things that just never go away. The grass always grows. Again, I think that used car sales are probably going to come up. I don't think new car sales, they may wane a little bit, but people constantly need, those kind of things. So consumer consumables, right? Those are areas I would look at.
What about for Uninet? Do you think of any, if you were starting over, would you stay in healthcare or would you make a move on the other side of COVID?
I would stay in healthcare. People are always going to be sick. People are always going to need their medicine. I was just talking to one of my neurosurgeons literally an hour ago, and they're having issues with patients and their prescriptions. Diabetic, one of their patients is diabetic and just struggling. That's something the people are going to always need. Al mentioned cutting grass. Not trying to argue or anything, but I used to have a lawn guy and I canceled it and I'm doing it myself. And I think places that you can save money whenever there's an issue is what people are going to save money. So think about, you can't get your medication. You can't diagnose yourself. You have to, I just think medical's, I hate it probably because everyone can't do that. But I think that's just an area that everyone's always going to need, and that's what I always told my kids, and they both, all three of my kids, not both of them, all three of my kids married in the medical. And I'm like, I always laugh. And I thought, well, maybe I preach that too much, but I do think think of what you cannot do on your own that you have to have, and even the food thing, and like the water thing. I don't know. I think there's a lot, but I think medical is, what's better than medical that you're guaranteed you have to have help with that.
Now, I'm going to tell you guys something out there. When I walked into medicine, the sales aspect of medicine, man, I looked across the table and I saw some sharp individuals. It's not for the weak. You better bring your A game and you better stay the F on top of it. Because if you get that opportunity, it's one where you don't get very many mistakes that you can suffer through, because it's a cortical game. You got a bunch of high-end personalities, and these guys doctors want what they want when they want it. You got office managers that are under the gun to make sure these practices run. And so, yeah, it's one where, the survival of the fittest.
Yeah. Right.
What about you, John?
I think,
where would you go?
If I was starting all the way over, I would probably, with like no connections or anything, I would probably go, I think I'd probably go into something of like a product, right? Because like the consulting thing is kind of difficult because a lot of people are like, how do I know that I can trust you and stuff like this? So the social proof requirement and what I do is rather extensive, right? Testimonials and feedback and everything else like this. Whereas, and this might be me thinking that the grass is always greener kind of deal, but like I think that with a product you can show up and be like, hey, like would this thing help, right? And you have like a tangible thing that people can be like, oh yeah, that would help or it wouldn't, right? Like I know that I'm smart, like my clients get value out of the work that we do together, but like if you don't know who I am, okay, how much do I really trust this guy's process and brain, power and everything else like that? So I would probably go down the path of like creating like either like a SaaS product, like a software as a service, or something along those lines. Just because I think that I think it's easier to do that kind of stuff on like a volume play than doing some of the stuff that I'm doing, which is much more like higher ticket, because you got to be in the right market and fishing in the right holes for those things to land well. If you can figure out like a decent widget, right, that you can just produce and market and sell well, then I think that's kind of the dream. But
one of the things that just came to mind is if I was starting not completely over, but if I was in a sales role, say I had been just in the hardware side of things where I was selling to surgeons, I would be looking for a lateral move, right? I would be looking at everything from pharmaceuticals to tissue sales to the biologics, the whole gamut. And if you're in an industry and one segment or one vertical is not working because of COVID, start looking at other verticals that sit left or right to the vertical that you're used to, right? So get creative. And I would call people and I would literally be hat in hand wanting an opportunity. And pride cometh before the fall, because at a certain point, if it's starting over, it's starting over. Get your head out of your butt. You're starting over. You're going to take less. You're going to have to get back to, working harder and longer. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast, guys. So it's not the same world.
Well, and that was something that I was going to say in relation to whatever you choose, whatever you think is the smart avenue to take, you better have it sounds like opposite, but you better have a leadership heart and a servant heart, where you better be able to motivate yourself and be willing to deny yourself to help others, or you are not going to succeed. I don't care what field you go into. You have to have a servant's heart, I really believe, to succeed.
I mean, and you got to be willing to eat a plate of glass to get a job, right? And I mean, that seems extreme, but I've seen too many high-minded salespeople that unfortunately, I think that attitude I think you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and you're going to have to hit the pavement, and you've got to be willing to do whatever it takes if you're in that position where your industry's just not coming back.
Yeah. We got a door knock actually last night and another one just now. This guy was here and he was trying to sell pest control services, right? And so went out there. It was an okay pitch, right? He did all the very traditional stuff, assumed the sale, barreling right at it and everything. And so finally I was like, "Hey man, can I stop you?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "It's going to be a no, but I'd like to ask you some questions about your role." And he said, "Sure." This guy is from New Jersey. He goes to college in Maryland, and a lot like your daughter, all of his internships got just knocked down, like just completely gone. So a friend of his had sold, the same pest control the year before and made some good money. So he just decided to pack up, move to Texas for the summer to sell, because he was saying that we were opening up faster down here than they're opening up there. So this guy is willing to move halfway across the nation.
Your sound just went.
Did it?
I can't hear you.
Hold on.
I can hear you. I don't know.
You can hear me now?
Can you speak? Maybe it's me. Nan, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I think it's you.
Nanette, speak. No, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Technical difficulties, everybody. Sorry. But he's down here for 3.5 months, and his job sucks. I said, "How many doors do you knock on a day?" And he was like, "The goal is to knock on 150 doors." And I said, "Okay, how many conversations are you trying to have off of that?" And he said, "The goal is 60. And I was like,
60. Dang. Wow.
Right?
That's right.
That's a lot of conversations. You're going to get good, right? As long as you're coachable.
Yeah. Yeah. And self-aware, right? Of where you're having to modify your technique to fit your product and fit your audience, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a one size fits all. I think the same dynamic applies, right? Getting that pendulum to swing to get that patient, or that client to make a decision, right? And using all the tools of, bonding and rapport and going through, some of the trials and tribulations or the pain that these people are experiencing that you're going to solve with your particular product, right?
Mm-hmm.
And going for the no still. It's, because there's where you got to choke back the urge to be desperate, right? Whenever I say, John, sounds like this isn't a fit, wouldn't you agree? And John needs to come back and either give me a yes or a no. Well, if it's a no, then the question is, why is it that you'd never want to do business with me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to ask the hard questions to outpace your competition. Because if you show up like every other person that's showing up for the sales role, guess what? Those people are going to have a hard time surviving. You've got to sharpen the sword and get in there and cut some grass. I mean, you got to get it done.
I've been I've been journaling about this all week, and the thing that comes back to me is like, nobody wants a yes man, right? Like in your trusted advocates, nobody wants the guy who's always going to be like, hey, that's a great idea, right? They want someone who's going to be like, okay, why are you doing it that way? Is that really the smartest way? Is there another way that we should talk about? And you have the opportunity to do that from the get-go, because it's really hard to change that relationship later on, right? If you
agree, absolutely.
If you get the business by being the most, placating, always on the spot, Johnny ready guy, then like that's how the relationship is going to work, which means, you might get taken advantage of, you might be too exposed, and everything else like this might stop you from growing your entire book. But
but you just hit on something. You've got to maintain that equal stature. As hard as times are, we're still in this together, right? Yeah. And I'm still here to provide you a solution, not be your whipping boy, right? And, you're going to find a lot of frustration out there, a lot of frustration. People are having to do more with less. You go into an office, they're understaffed now. Maybe they've had to let some people go, or some people are still out. The big dilemma is we're paying more people to sit on the sidelines now. And so some of these industries are understaffed. They can't, all their employees haven't come back. Yeah. So those are all kind of key arenas. And here's another thought. Don't be afraid to take a non-sales position in a very strong company and then push your way into sales. Think about that as well. If there's a really thriving industry that you have some kind of inclination that it'd be a good fit for you, but there are no sales openings, ask if there's any opening at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because something's better than nothing. And, poop in one hand and, open
wish in the other.
Wish in the other one, see which one fills up faster, right?
One of the things that I've been doing that's been somewhat successful is, reaching out to people, getting into their DMs, having a bit of a conversation. And the thing is I've been playing with lots of different things, right? I posted some of the stuff on my Facebook, but these people it's so easy for them to be like, oh, not right now. And, you're just like everybody else. I don't really need this, and things like this. And to your point, right, you got to go with that, right? Because when you try to challenge that assumption, you don't have enough trust yet, right? Oh, you guys are just like everybody else. If I say, no, I'm not, I now have to prove why I'm not. Whereas if I'm just like, absolutely, man, I hear that a lot.
Exactly. That's when you say not uncommon, because I do hear that a lot and I understand where that comes from. Should we have a discussion about that? And the assumption isn't always, a fit. And let me tell you why.
Yeah.
Right. Again, it's, if you're polite about things and to the point, people like Clint said last week about the guy that just called up and threw his pitch and it felt good to Clint. If you can, because business owners and business still want to do business.
Yeah.
Right. They're just it's gonna take a little bit more out of you to impress them that there's the potential that you could help them through this crisis.
Yeah.
So I say bring up the crisis, have a conversation around COVID and how harmful it's been, and be empathetic and ask them how it's impacted their business and what their forecast looks for and how are they going to survive these trying times.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's legit.
Yeah.
I know it's legit. Whenever I talked to somebody, he said, my patient visits went from 80 last week to 84. He's glad for the extra 4 visits.
Yeah.
And it's almost hard to tell him, wow, what are you doing? Because people are frozen in fear. I'm like, what are you doing to get more patients? What are you doing to highlight that you're open? Because people are locked down. They're not, they've got blinders on. They're not seeing lateral. Their creative juices have been stifled. They're in survival mode. And that is that's the quickest death to a small to medium-sized business. Because you have no confidence. It's all being kicked out of you. Your bank account's on empty, man. It's like driving your car, right? You're trying to get to the gas station, but you're in the middle of West Texas. You're like, holy shit. And you're watching the needle. You're not watching the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's hard for my market because I think that there's a lot of people who have got a lot of preconceived notions about this method of selling that I'm doing, like sliding into DMs, asking some questions, building some rapport, trying to get on a call. And they kind of have their walls up. And so one of the things that I've started doing was really kind of talking about like, hey, now, we've been chatting for a little bit. I'm supposed to ask you if we can hop on a call to see if there's anything that we can work on together. But before I do that, is it okay if I share my big three with you? And they'll have been saying either sure or what's your big three, and then I can say, what we have found is that we can do really cool stuff for clients and really help them, increase their sales and everything else in the process and hire and scale and everything. But we kind of got to see some alignment on 3 major points. So, and then I can draw those out. And so they're not pain points, right? Because I think that more and more people are just savvy to the idea of people are looking for pain points. So instead of doing that, which is kind of transparent and people are used to it, let's go the other way, right? Because pain is a great way to get on the phone, but there's also other ways, right? And with people being more savvy, I think there's an element of wonder that people are looking for, right? Like, because there's not really anything new under the sun, right? You get a call from like a marketing guy, that he's only got 3 or 4 things in his bag. So, you can make a decision pretty quickly. But if like someone, and the reason why I like this is because I heard someone do it on a role play. They were using it slightly different than I've been using it, but it sounded really awesome. And I was like, man, I think I can modify that a little bit for my purposes, because then you can do like quotes from like really big people, because, for my stuff where I'm talking about like data-driven selling systems, I'm like, hey, look, here are our big 3, right? What gets measured gets managed by Peter Drucker, right? The data will speak to you if you know how to listen, by this person, and then another one. So like that there would be like, oh, right? There's a foothold there maybe of like, hey, I'm curious why these quotes are specifically important to this guy, versus just like, hey, what's keeping you up at night, or what's stressing you out during COVID? Everything, right? So,
well, I think you need to be specific, because if it's industry specific, some of the questions that I'm asking my colleagues and other people that are in business, and these are people I do business with, right? So their business is tied to my business from an ancillary standpoint. How are your numbers? What have you done to activate your previous patient base? What's their fear factor in this whole equation? What are you doing to assure them that you're taking the proper precautions to ensure that they have a safe, visit to the office, right? Are you proactive? Are you still sitting on your hands? And a lot of them are still sitting on their hands. Right? Yeah. They're seeing the patients that are coming to them, but they're not going after their patient base. And these guys have been in practice a while. They have files that they could be reactivating.
So why aren't they then, right? And
because fear makes you close down. Why do you think Al Qaeda can take a guy out into the desert and cut his damn head off, and you never see the guy struggle?
Okay. So how does that?
It shuts your neurology down.
So, because I think that that's applicable outside of even just like patient care, right? In these clinics and stuff like that. Because if you have clients, right, go get into your invoicing system and look for those clients and reach out to those people and be like, hey.
I've been saying that from day one.
Yeah.
If you're not staying tight with your people are afraid. They're going 10 different directions. If you're not pulling them together and showing some, like Nan said, leadership, empathy, and connection, even if they don't have an answer, at least you know what their problem is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if it comes back in a week, you're like, oh man, I got a great idea for them. I probably should call them back up and tell them, hey, what are you doing? We're doing direct mailers because people are at home. We are literally, I'm doing it myself, right? Getting a mailing list. We've got a postcard that goes out that says we are still here. We have an email list that we put together, right? We're at about 4,000 emails that we're going to be dropping. We're doing antibody testing, cold cough. Oh, here's another one, guys. We have one of our direct reps for McKesson. He's actually a patient of ours. McKesson, very large. You can look them up. They're a supply chain to healthcare. They said the U.S. government is ordering and preparing to order more than they've ever ordered before for their stockpiles. It's going to limit the supply to small guys like us. So we're stocking up, but things are running out. It's like when you guys try to go buy toilet paper. We're trying to buy alcohol swabs. We're trying to buy syringes. We're trying to buy gloves. We're trying to buy masks. There is a limited supply. So if you get with somebody that has the ability to solve those kind of problems in healthcare or any other industry, because not all the problems are being solved. There's a limited supply in some cases.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's hard out there. But so what? Fuck, what are you supposed to do? Get in there, roll your sleeves up, and start fighting your way back to what because at the end, there's going to be fewer, but there's going to be more opportunities for the strong.
For sure. Annette, before we turn on recording and turn on the live, we were talking a little bit about you, and you were saying that you were doing some like email reach outs.
Right.
Can you share a little bit more about that, about what's working and what isn't?
My main physicians are not opening their offices. They're not ready to just let me come in. And but as we talked about it last week, if you keep up with your clients, you have other ways to communicate with them, be it an email or a phone number. I mean, I've been texting all week long with everyone at all the different offices saying, okay, and it's amazing how easily it's a lot easier to communicate via an email or a text than it is to have to drive to the location. But that doesn't matter if it's easier, but it needs to be done right now. It doesn't matter if it's easier later because people want to feel appreciated. So I'm not just going to drop them a text or an email. People do well when you appreciate them by showing some love, basically. So, but right now, texting and emailing every day with all kinds of people. So,
and is that to kind of nurture the existing relationships you had, or are you actively prospecting for new relationships via text and email?
No, I am not actively prospecting I think you have to. I mean, Al could say, well, that's like advertising, but Al and I talked about this the other day, that I do, and maybe that's because I'm an S, I do better in front of people, building that relationship. I don't think I would do well just reaching out to, cold calling via email. I mean, I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
Well, and a lot of times, our business is such a relationship one-on-one, because we interact with, some hospital systems on getting our product on the shelf, but it takes the doctor to use our product off the shelf, right? So he has to say, hey, go down to supply and get Al and Nanette's tissue, or I need this particular product. So we have to have a champion inside that system. So that's that relationship that takes, the building, and that's just a nuance to healthcare, or to what we do. I would never discourage anybody from attempting to create new business during these times, right? I think some of the best relationships can be forged during trying times, because you really are appreciated for the benefit that you can bring to that equation.
Yeah. Nanette, you were going to say something?
Just in agreement with him. I think I don't think it's bad to reach out to people that you don't know via an email or a text. And as Al said that, I think I'm just going to be more successful. But as Al said, this is a good time to try it.
Yeah.
Even though
I think one of my big concerns, and I think this is something that we should all kind of consider as well. I mean, I don't need to be Debbie Downer today, but I think sales roles are going to change with some of these issues, right? The ability to just let somebody walk into your business, may be a bigger hurdle than it even was. It was already hard to get through the back, get to the back. Now, it may present itself, to be even more difficult to get a face-to-face. So you got to use some of this. And I think that Clint hit on it, where, the last sales guy that he spoke of on the show was, hey, can you jump on your computer and let me go through this with you?
Mm-hmm.
Some of that, that's got to be in your toolkit. I thought that was a great idea. I mean, it doesn't really apply to what we do, but I think that, it can apply to a lot of industries of, hey, John, you got a second to jump on a Zoom call or, face to face. So that in talks, I can see your body language, because that's more of the communication than the words that you actually say.
Yeah.
Right.
And
then you can say, "Biatch, don't make me jump through the screen and kick your ass."
You can definitely say those things.
Well, no, but you'd kick my ass, man.
No.
I gotta like the screen between the two of us these days.
I'm just saying that I'm probably not going to be that eye in my reach outs and conversation.
Agreed. But what I'm saying is, you can have fun with this too, and
For
you
sure.
can make it enjoyable, because you can see the other person and you can get some feedback, and you can see the eye rolls and just the facial expressions about what you're talking about, and you can transmit, your encouragement so much more effectively, or for a guy like me, or you can see what's going on in their face and their body posture, and get a real sense for, because you don't know how many times I've walked into an office and I said, "Hey doc, how's the practice going?" He's like, "Good, good," but I know it's not good. I know the guy. I'm like, so then the conversation goes forward, and then you start to, unmask some of the issues that are going on in that office.
Mm-hmm.
But until I see it on his face and his words don't match his expressions, and his body language,
Yeah.
I'm not getting the full story. If it was just by hearing it, it wouldn't be enough.
That's fair. And this is slightly adjacent to the main topic, but talking about changes on the other side of this, one of the things that you do very well that I didn't really appreciate at the time whenever we were working together is you have, and you say this all the time, right? We run a full bag, right? And I don't think I paid enough attention to that idea whenever we work together, because you have something to offer everybody, right? From like a surgeon all the way down to like a frontline guy and stuff like that. So that way it improves your ability to get traction and rapport, and it makes all the conversations that you have into a higher percentage to turn into something long-term. So
right.
I think on the other side of this, a lot of people who network a lot and all these things should really be doubling down to go look for like adjacent offers that they could either rep, right, and represent and get like a finder's fee or something along those lines, or just make it, put yourself in the position so that way every conversation you have has the potential to be impactful. I'm all for niching and targeting and like hanging out with your target market and spending time with the people who earn it. But, if you can go find, somebody who does something close to you, right? So in website world, that might be like somebody's SEO offer, right? That you can offer to like other people and get like 10% or white label it or something along those lines. So that way I can then have conversations about website stuff. Oh, but you want marketing and not a website? Oh, could you tell me more about that? And really being able to pivot. And in small business worlds, like everybody's got referral networks and referral finders fees and stuff like this. So like if you're out there networking, like go find 3 or 4 people who are doing something adjacent that aren't exactly competitors, and figure out a way that you guys can work together, right? Whether it's referrals or whether it's like you making the offers on their behalf or something. But I think we're going to see a lot more people showing up to any kind of event with more to offer, as opposed to I've got one thing, and if you don't want it, I got to go kind of deal.
Well, okay. And so that brings up a real important point. Healthcare is always shifting sands, right? Because we've gotten directives on, we now have to have this authorization to do this particular procedure. So insurance companies are coming up with new things that started June 1st, right? So they tend to insurance companies are data crunchers. They are just behemoths on codes and how much they're spending and what arena they're spending most of their money, and they start to stifle it whenever it becomes, you know, kind of a cash cow for our industry, because you know, everybody jumps on the bandwagon, and you've been in this, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And with that mentality, we have to have different verticals, or we get one shut down and we're a one trick pony and we're done, right? And that happened to me many years ago. I had a very big work comp practice, and then the state of Texas changed the rules and went to a network system where the insurers were allowed to pick and choose the people who could provide in the injured workers arena. And guess who they kicked out? Everybody that had made money in it prior, right?
Yeah.
They didn't like big patient advocates. They wanted you to be their lapdog. And, you know, and I've had conversations with, you know, company presidents who, you know, it's a thorn in their side, but it's only because they've been misinformed about cost containment and the physician side, the participation in it. So again, those different verticals that you have in your industry, start looking left and right, seeing where you could fit your current situation, like you said, into some of these niche markets that maybe aren't as large, but if they give you a tangible product or something that's sellable, man, go investigate, see what you can find out and what the potential is for you to make a living in those arenas.
Yeah, there's a saying that I've been thinking a lot about this week, and it's all about like target rich environments, right? And the more that you can offer your people, the better, the more target rich every conversation is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at that stuff very specifically because, you know, there's a lot of things that people come ask me about that I don't want to do, right? Like I don't want to do websites anymore. I definitely don't want to, you know, stay in that world. I've kind of made my peace with it and moved on and things like that. So, but since people are asking me about that, it would make sense to have a good partner, right? Thankfully, you know, I can send that stuff off to Jeff, right? Because, you know, he's still in that world. But go find those things. Go find the adjacent offers, you know, and get some juice on it. Because, I mean, even if you can't get juice, you know, you can make good referrals out to people on a regular basis, which builds trust and builds rapport, you know?
Sure.
So, you know, don't necessarily say no to like some kind of referral finder's fee agreement just because you might not get paid for it. If it's the best thing in the industry and that's going to build you rapport and trust with the people that you make that introduction to, like that has its own worth.
Well, and I kind of see this through our conversation as being a divide between IT and service industry, right? And, you know, selling that, and then consumables, right? What are people still have to eat. People still have to buy tires for their car. They still have these consumption habits that are going to stay. They're maybe diminished, but they're still going to be there. And so if you can find your way into a consumable product that is, you know, that's driven by, you know, consumer demand, there's going to be a need for those markets to expand. And they need sales forces to get that done.
Yeah.
So
for sure. Man, without Clint here, we get a lot more done.
Well, wait a second. We definitely take the positives and move this direction. And so, yeah. Hopefully Clint's on the golf course or out drinking at a bar or something, you know, doing something productive with his time. Hopefully he's not locked in a book. Huh?
I say closing a deal.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I mean, construction. Yeah, I think that, you know, on the local market in the housing industry, I mean, we've seen, you know, a little bit of a decline. Prices are holding up, but just the market hasn't come back because people are afraid to show and tell houses and do all that kind of stuff. But you know, it doesn't have to be the same industry, guys. I think is the one thing that I'm throwing out there, because if healthcare went away, I would be okay. I'd find something, right?
Yeah.
I you know, I present well. I think that I don't mind having a conversation, and I'm not afraid of the no. And I don't think any of us are. And so, you know, when it comes to time to get in front of people to say something or having a sales conversation, you got to be the best at that. You got to be willing to get in front of people, however it may happen, and, you know, and have that conversation.
And that's the really important thing there, because it's too easy to get entrenched in some version of your prospecting about like how to get in front of people. Use whatever works, right? Just make sure that you're getting in front of enough decision makers on a regular enough basis, either weekly or monthly, that you're actually, getting enough reps, right? Because the thing about being okay with a no is about having no pressure in your pipeline, right? Pipeline's got to be deep, right? If I give you one opportunity at a 3-point shot, or else you don't get to eat, there's a lot of pressure on that one. If you have 40, no sweat, right? It's just a matter of time. So your sales pipeline has got to be looked at the same way. So, go add stuff to the pipeline, like as much as you possibly can, and you'll feel different. You'll feel it shift and get easier in your conversations.
And ask people for help. Ask people for help, not for a handout, but for help, right? Nanette, I'm hoping that you could help me with this. Do you mind if I ask you a question? Or some introduction that's just outside of, because people want to help other people. They really do. I don't think there's any, because I'm always like, I was wondering if you could help me with this. Oh yeah, sure. What is it? Well, I need to, find out who runs shipping and receiving for you guys. Can you direct me in that direction? Right. Yep. Would you be willing to help me with this? And if they say, no, I can't give that information out, then I would even say, well, is there somebody else who could? If it's a no from you, sorry, times are hard. I really need to, do a presentation, right? I'm like a door-to-door salesman at this point, and I don't want to be mean. If you want to throw me out, just ask me to leave or get the hell out of here, and I'll gladly go. Yeah. You've got to just be that guy.
And one thing that you do very well is you can make that ask, like, hey, could you help me out? And it feels authentic, right? When you're doing that kind of stuff, especially me as a C who doesn't really think about tone in the same way as like you and Nanette do, like I really have to make sure that my tone with those kinds of asks is like really on point, that I've got that kind of curiosity inflection in it, because otherwise it comes across as just like a tactic, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, Al, I'm wondering if you can help me. You don't believe me that I actually need your help, right? It feels like a prompt.
But yeah, but I that's on you though, John. And in a certain sense, you have genuine conversations in your own way, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just be you, and however you would ask for help, do that.
Sure, but like I'm saying that there are some things that you might hear me say or Al say or Nanette or Clint, and go out and try to use it without thinking about the nonverbal element, the tonality, the pausing, the cadences, the volume, all of those things. And studies show that it's much more about like how you say something than what it actually is you say. So if you're going to lead with that of like, hey, I'm not sure if you're the right person to help me, is it okay if I tell you who I'm looking to talk to? You need to sound genuinely curious, right? Because when you come across as with that salesperson tone, you turn people off because they're making mental decisions about you.
Right. But that's when you're like every other guy that or gal that's walked in there, and you're like, I'm with so and so, and you start giving your vomit spiel of what you do to the girl at the front who says, I just answer the damn phones. What do you want, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's the other big hurdle that I see a lot of people fail at is they don't get to the influencer. They don't get to the decision maker, and they give all their information to the wrong individual. Keep it short and sweet. They don't want to hear your sales pitch. They want to hear, what do you need? Can you help me? And, what is it? Well, I need to speak to somebody that handles your shipping and receiving. Who would that be? Can you help me out?
Yeah.
Right. Mind if I borrow your bathroom? I've got to throw up. I'm really nervous about this, right?
I think I've used that one before.
Yeah, I felt that way before. I went to this office, and I think I've told you, to drop. I was just pushing literature, right? I had no sales acumen at all. I'm just doing my little brochure, my one pager, and I'm handing it. She's taking it back. So I'm thinking, all right, the guy didn't see it. So I come back in. I got a different version of some one pager. The fourth time or fifth, maybe it's third to fifth time, she just brings it back to me and shakes her head, doesn't say anything, and hands it back to me. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go in this office anymore. I have been officially shut down because I'm that weak. I mean, she could have like tipped me over with just a push, right? And if you're not willing to go back to those days, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. You know, it's a shit show out there in the real world these days, and not a complete shit show. It's just things are tumultuous. And if life's going good for you, and because we do have an audience that some of these, you know, some of our folks out there are still doing well.
Yeah.
Go get more business. Use that leverage. Step on your competition. Get out there and connect. And hopefully that's happening for some people out there.
So the whole thing and everything we've talked about these past few weeks is change is inevitable. It's going to happen. And it's going to either feel like it's a negative or a positive. Well, you've got to improve. You've got to improve your attitude and go, you know what? I'm going to make the best of this and figure out how to improve. And don't just go, gosh, this is what I really want. This is what I want to do. I want to be. Well, be what you want to be. Don't just think about it. Don't just, you know, figure out stuff, improve, learn something, be braver. You know, like as I was telling that story, I never have that, which, sorry, I know that sounds, I don't mean that. I just don't have that in my personality.
Good for you. Good for you, Nanette.
So that's not where I need to improve, but think about where you need to improve. People learn when they are alone. You've been alone. You're about to not be alone, more than likely. So, you know, hopefully you have learned something. You have improved in the time. It's inevitable. Like I said, there's going to be change. It's essential to self-improve being alone. You have to be alone to do that. You can't, we can do this podcast and learn from each other, and you can learn from other people. That's highly important, but you do need to spend time alone to improve yourself. And that's my biggest thing, listening to all this, improve. So Al, I would suggest that you start. You need to get out to some offices.
A little less is what Nanette is saying. I'm just gonna put it out there, Clint, like.
Yes, I know. I'm rusty as hell at knocking on doors, but you're exactly right. We could all, you know. So guys, you know, do as I say, don't do as I do. Because if you followed me around, you might find out how big a weak suck I probably am. But
the other side of that, right, is you got to play in the field that you're given, right? Like you've been in healthcare for how long now? 200 years?
25 years.
25 years, right? So
right.
You've got connections, you've got prestige, you've got, you know, social proof.
I don't know about prestige, but I know I got a phone full of numbers, right? All I got to do is get on it and start calling people, and something usually happens. Something usually happens, and nobody tells me to go F off, right? So I will say that is a plus, and they're usually willing to sit down, and when you say, how's it going? What do you got going on? It's a genuine conversation, because I don't want to see anybody go out of business. I don't want to see anybody unemployed.
Yeah.
I really hope, you know, and if I could ever help anybody, just reach out and say, hey man, could I have a 5-minute conversation? If I have any value, you can have it. You know, free of charge. Shit, just call me. Let me know what you need. I mean, I'm not going to give you any damn money, because I got to keep all of that in my bank account for a rainy day. I mean, I'm feeding 30 people. And, you know, but I'll give you some advice, or I'll connect you with somebody, and they'll talk to you as well.
So Al, like you said, so John asked you, how long have you been doing it? So any of you new bucks out there that are going, well, I don't have that credibility. Well, it took him a minute to get it. And you don't burn bridges. You treat people with respect. You reach out. You know, you can't have a relationship with people, I don't care if it's business, whatever, if you don't spend time with them. So put yourself out there, be it email, text, in their face, whatever, but communicate with people. And
so I almost starved to death when I first got out of school. Literally almost starved to death. I was working as an associate, and I was making very little money, more money than I had. But then I had a kid on the way. I was going to work a night job and then do the clinic, right? I think some of you guys kind of know this story.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid of taking that overnight job, guys. You know, if you got to supplement and do something else, I'm sorry, do it, right? Because I did it, right? I got no damn sympathy for laziness. You can sleep when you're dead, right? Quit with the self-pity. Get out there and find something.
I'm very glad you said that. That is a very valid point. I know probably 5 very, very successful businessmen, and they all have the story of the second, third, fourth job, doing stuff that they were way overqualified for, but it got them to the point. You know, there's security in knowing, well, at least I'm going to have that. At least I'm going to get funds from that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's this one guy.
I had a lady, my resume didn't count. I had to fill out their application, right? I had a lady that I submitted the application, and I was going to work overnight at this production company, and they shipped stuff out, and you just did, you know, anyway, whatever that job was. And she looked at me and she goes, "You don't want this job." That's what she told me. And I said, "But I need this job. I have a kid to feed." And I thought I was going to make her cry. And she was like, "Okay, well, can you start next Monday?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can start tonight if you need me to start tonight."
Yeah.
Again, that's when doors open up though for you, right? That didn't last very long. Okay. That's when opportunity, because I was hungry and I was willing to eat a plate of glass to get out of my situation, not hurt anybody, but do whatever it took to get to the next level. And as opportunities started to come up, I was so appreciative to have them. Man, I just made sure I got it right.
Yeah, I don't know if I've talked about this on the show or not, but I took a pretty big pay cut to come work for you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know this, but I don't know if the whole audience does. And so, my daughter was a baby essentially, and daycare is expensive, and so I would get up and be in the OR at 5 a.m. with Al and these guys, and then I waited tables in a sushi restaurant here in Fort Worth. I worked Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and then came back and worked the Sunday morning brunch shift. And I did that for almost the entire time that we worked together, right? So those Thursdays and Fridays when there were cases and stuff, when we start at 5 a.m. and we're done with cases at about 2, and then I might have like an hour to kind of like follow up on stuff and then get home and change, that way I can be at the restaurant by 4. I mean,
I remember. Yeah.
That was pure hustle, right? And it was tiring and it sucked. And
but you're still alive, right?
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and go ahead.
Well, what it makes me think of, there is a verse in the Bible that says, everyone who competes in the game goes into strict training. You're not just going to be given stuff. Like stop. I love that John shared that. I love that Al shared that. There is training. There is, you do not expect to be handed things in life. It's just not going to.
And if anybody's wondering, Nan just got a richer boyfriend every time.
But I mean, there's no one.
Wait a second, her mic's not even working because that was such a good comment.
My mic is working.
You were just so laughing at your own joke that you didn't hear her comment.
Oh, sorry. I guess I was.
Ooh, that's crazy that would have happened in your life, Dr. Daniel.
But here's the deal. I know guys that have had to shut down their shops and go to work at like Amazon, right? I mean, there's nothing bad about that, right? The bad thing to do is just like throw up your hands and be like, oh, I can't
because
make any change.
Because if you get into a situation where you're recognized as hustling on the front line, right? Guess what's going to open up opportunities, right? Show me an organization that doesn't want to promote within with great people, right? Now the time frame, maybe it extends it, but if you can survive, you can then get someplace again, right? Because you got one of two choices: either get it done, or I'm famous about jumping off of bridges and stuff, but I shouldn't go that route again because I got so much trouble the last time I said it. So I won't say jump off a bridge, But I will say, what else is there for you, right?
There's always an option, right?
Yeah, there's always we live in still a very prosperous country. We've been kicked down a little bit, but there are better days to come. We have to get our arms around COVID, but I think that opens up certain doors and opportunities that might not have existed prior to that. Different ways of doing business, ways that may be more efficient, and they're technology driven. And I'm going to suffer if I have to go that route, right? It's already hard enough for me. But some of the generation before me and before them, like John, and then, the 20-somethings, you guys are already fit for that kind of stuff. You guys have come through all of that. I mean, y'all don't even know what DOS is, right? That's about the only computer terminology I could even throw out there. That's how archaic I am.
I'm familiar with DOS. I'm not that young.
Okay.
Yeah. So wrapping up, right? Because we are coming up on the hour. Go look for it, right? It's not always just continuously beating your head against the wall. There is an element of that, right? There's always going to be a volume aspect in selling. Like, that's just all it is. And with volume is time. So how do you manage your time? So take the opportunities to go, enrich your environment, enrich your skill set. Like, go figure out how to make it happen, right? And some of the best things is to write it down, right? Get it out of your head, put it on paper, remove your attachment to it, and really figure out, if someone came to me with this problem, what would I tell them to do if it wasn't me? Because that's where you're going to find your answer the majority of the time. We let ourselves off the hook around our intentions all the time. All the time. We firmly believe that the future version of ourselves, even if it's to Monday, right? The gym starts Monday. Are you really going to be more disciplined on Monday than you are like right now? No. So go today, right? Like think about how you're going to feel when it's done, right? And this goes for like any activity you don't want to do, right? I don't like prospecting. It's my least favorite part of sales. We've talked about this, but I still make myself do it because I don't get to have decision maker conversations without it. So I know that I got to have one to feed the other. So there is a consistency of this, right? There's a not give up to this, but there's also like, don't be dumb just for the sake of being dumb. So that way you can be like, well, I tried this and it didn't work, right? We have the intellectual sides to ourselves for a reason. So.
Yeah, I think you got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to challenge yourself, and you got to be better than you were before COVID hit.
Yay.
Awesome. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. We didn't really get any questions, but that's okay. So if you know someone else in sales who is sharing that or who's struggling, please share this with them. I did a disc breakdown with one of our listeners yesterday, Andy, and he came out of it with a lot of insight and new information about himself and how he focuses on sales. So if you're not sure who or where you are or what your struggles are or where that comfort zone line actually is and you need help getting past that, reach out to us, disc@salesthrowdown.com. You can message me on any platform that you can find me on. It's always @JohnSmallMountain. And we're on all the social networks as @SalesThrowdown, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So share this around. If you're struggling, there's probably some internal side of that as well. And the only way you're going to get past that is to figure out what it is. And that's what these assessments are made for. So awesome. Thanks, everybody. I was ducking out from the bottom, and we'll see everybody next week. Cheers.
Goodbye.